This is Spooky Socialist, and I just wanted to comment on this one tendency that's always repeated by capitalists, in that they basically they don't really argue against banking crashes, the automotive industry crashing and putting millions of people out of work, food crises, shortages, housing shortages, or they, they don't really argue against all of these atrocities that happened over the course of decades throughout the history of capitalist countries. What they argue for is that these things are natural, or and not only that, not only do they argue that these things are natural, they argue that these things are healthy because they are signs that the economy is fluctuating. And so it's like it's kind of a cheap trick, isn't it? That you're not actually going to defend or try to explain any of these problems. You're just going to argue that they're healthy, and the alternative is a Stalinist shithole where the economy never moves. That's basically what they're arguing. Isn't that? I'm pretty sure that's what we call a cop out. And another point is that you will never see a capitalist, a defender of capitalism, defend second and third world failures. Like, there are tons of third world and second world disasters, but the only ones that matter are the ones where they can claim are controlled by socialist parties. So they'll ridicule Venezuela all fucking day, but they'll never, like, and it's really ironic because they'll never consider the conditions of, say, Mexico or most of southern Latin America, which is purely capitalist for the most part. Um, so they won't defend third world or second world failures. Oftentimes, they won't defend atrocities that happened in the first world because, as I just said, they'll argue that it's a sign of healthy fluctuation. So then, what do they defend? Well, normally they defend the conditions of the current middle class, and it's not even the middle class. It's they make arguments that come straight out of the upper middle class. Now, I like I know this is kind of like I mean, this is kind of what Marx talked about when he said that oftentimes the arguments from the opposers of communism are typically arguments that prop up the uh, the 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 bourgeois' control over the means of production and their ideologies and all that. So it's not even about capitalism versus communism at this point. It's class warfare. This is really what it is. It's the upper classes um, turning their guns on the lower classes and justifying their existence. And so, I mean, this like it's class warfare for the most part. All of these arguments, they're coming from a place of wealthy privilege, where individuals have the freedoms to do all these amazing things that capitalism has apparently brought about. It's not an honest debate in any way. It's pure trickery. I mean, for once I would love to see one of these big skeptic YouTube channels or these big pro-capitalist YouTube channels defend, say, Mexico or like Argentina or certain states in Africa. I would love to hear them defend the uh, absolutely horrid, humiliating conditions of the average worker in those countries. Why hasn't capitalism brought them out of poverty? Why is it the white English speaking countries? Uh, I mean, you'll never see that happen. You'll never see um, arguments for that. I mean, it's just by this point, it's just like And I think that's the thing too. If we start looking at this from the point of class warfare, I think a lot of things will click into place and start to make sense. I think if we start to look as opposers of socialism as arguing from a privileged, wealthy class, which they are for the most part, I think it'll be much easier to debate than their twisted ideas of what they think capitalism is. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying if we go from an angle of classism, we directly attack what they're actually doing, which is arguing for the case of an exploitive upper class, which is what they're doing. Then I think it would be much easier to humiliate and ridicule them in the eyes of the masses, because we would have the masses on our sides. We would have the opinions and the views. We would like. I'm sort of rambling here, but we would basically be defending the interest and the motives behind the lower classes and the middle classes against the upper middle classes and the one percenters against their interest. And so the argument, the debate should really transform from quote unquote socialism versus quote unquote capitalism to a debate about class warfare. Essentially, we should be really attacking these classist arguments that they are, because they're not even pro-capitalist arguments. They're just reasons why society is so fucking unequal and why that's a healthy thing. It is by no means an honest debate. All right, thank you. I just wanted to throw that out there.